Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you go and sign up right now at draft.com with the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft. We are picking back up where we left off in the last episode, doing a retrospect on last season, why it's fresh in our minds of the top 50 players finished by totals. And so this episode is picking up where we left off at number 26. I am your host, Mike Catron, and joining me, as always, is my co host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
I just want to ask you if you have any pre-show rituals you do for this show, Mike.
No, I really don't. I get a bottle of water.
Because I only have one. Would you like to hear it?
Is it safe for work?
Well, yeah, I'll edit it down so it is.
All right.
So I just scream expletives at you while you're doing the intro with my mic on mute, just to make sure that the mic is actually going to mute if I want to mute it.
That seems very passive aggressive, Tyler.
It may be,
but if as long as it makes you feel good and it prepares you for the show, I'm okay with it. It's totally fine.
All right, good.
Beautiful. Let's just get right into it. We got a lot of players to go. We've already done the top 25, and if you're listening to this as this podcast came out, we're in the middle of the playoffs, and the last two episodes we did the top 10 and then the 11 through 25. If you're listening to this in the future, we're probably going to edit this up into a multi-part episode where you're just getting the season review instead of us talking about God knows what in the last two episodes. Mostly playoff predictions that have already either come true or have failed.
I feel like mine have been good, so I think yours may be the ones that failed.
We'll never know because I'll never go and listen to it. But it's been an exciting playoffs, and that's been pretty cool. But hopefully a lot of people listening to this are preparing for next season. So let's get into number 26. Let's just to make sure everybody's on the same page. We have sorted these rankings by total. We have gotten rid of turnovers. So this is an 8-cat rankings by total for the entire 2017-2018 season. And that puts at number 26 someone I feel like no one really cares too much about this player, especially outside of Roto leagues, and this is Otto Porter. How'd you feel about Otto Porter's season this year, Tyler?
I feel like in a head-to-head league, Otto Porter is a guy who's not fun to pick. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, he's not fun to pick because when you look at his box score, it doesn't excite you. And I've always tried to tell people, I don't care what their box score is. What are they producing night in, night out? Some players are more frustrating to own than others, and I feel like this is one of those players.
Well, I don't know. I feel like Otto Porter never has like the super flashy game either. You know what I mean? Like he never drops the 40 points or
every once in a while, like a couple, 2-3 times, 4 times a season, he'll almost get like 30 points. And that's okay.
Well, and that's usually when like either Bradley Beal or John Wall's hurt, right? And a lot of times when he's kind of the third fiddle there, his stats just kind of seem very blah. You know what I mean? Like no category stands out, and so it's hard to get excited about drafting Otto Porter and owning Otto Porter for the season. But Otto Porter just gets a little bit better every year and is a top 26 player, obviously. I mean, there's not a ton to say about Otto Porter, I don't think. Like, I think Otto Porter just is Otto Porter.
Yeah, he finished here playing, let's see, all 82 games. Is that true? Wow.
No, he played 77.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. He played 77 games. Still, that is a lot of games for Otto Porter. Played almost 32 minutes a night. And like I said, outside of he's much more valuable in Roto leagues. Outside of Roto leagues, he is boring, like you're talking about. But here he is, ranked 26 in totals. That's pretty good. He doesn't do anything bad.
And he doesn't hurt you in any category, and
Anywhere.
he shoots great percentages, right? And if you add 3-point percentage in your league, right, he's a good 3-point percentage shooter as well. And he just does everything good and nothing great and nothing bad, right? It's just everything is good.
He is incredibly subjective to whatever your league type is going to be, what you're punting, and probably the most variance. If you're in a roto league or if you're going with percentages, he is a top 30 player. And if you're not, you could bust him down into maybe like the bottom, a lower 60.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like in head-to-head leagues, he's just not fun to pick, right? Like no one's
No.
going, I want Otto Porter. Like someone eventually is just like, yeah, I'll have Otto Porter.
Yeah, someone eventually just gets fed up and drafts him, or he's auto drafted in your crappier leagues. Going into next season, the Wizards are kind of a question mark. We don't know who's still going to be there on the team, if they're going to move on from John Wall, if they're going to keep the same team together. And I think Otto Porter getting a bigger role in that team would be pretty cool. It'd be good for his value. But I see Otto Porter kind of being exactly what he was this year, a guy who's solid across the board. That's it.
I'm also a little worried about Otto Porter if he has to like be the man that those percentages maybe don't look as good.
Yeah, he might give you some more of the counting stats, but then his efficiency could drop, and if that's what you're looking for, then that's not great. Kind of a crapshoot for Otto Porter, but not really a sexy player.
I'm with you there.
Number 27 on the list. Not a fantastic season from this player overall in totals, but per game, as always, one of the top point guards in the league. I'm talking about Chris Paul, who only played 58 games this season. Tyler, do you still have Chris Paul, even though he is 33 years old? Allegedly, he's supposed to get a large contract or a semi-large. We don't know where he's going to be next year. I assume he's going to be on Houston with the way they're playing.
Matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter where he's going.
I mean, he's Chris Paul on pretty much any team, in my opinion. Right? He does Chris Paul things. He will get you more assists likely if he plays for someone else, but I think he still does most of the other Chris Paul things.
So you would consider taking him in the first round, maybe second.
Well, you can find my top 50 on #basketball.com. So the real question is, where would you take him, Mike?
Ooh, well, now I have to go review my top tier players.
Well, here I'll just run a few down for you. How's that sound?
He's looking like he's fitting in the 9, 10, 11 area. Yeah, run him down for me.
Chris Paul or Damian Lillard?
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul, LeBron James.
That's a tough one. I might go with LeBron James.
Jokic.
Oh man, that's a tough one too. That's a toss-up. Tied.
Paul George.
Chris Paul.
Jimmy Butler.
Chris Paul.
Victor Oladipo.
Ooh. Maybe Chris Paul. I mean, he's just an elite point guard who gets major assists, and there's only about 3-4 guys who get elite assists in the league.
So, assuming you don't have him over the Giannis, Karl Towns, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, then you have him tied for 9th with Jokic, apparently.
Wow. All right. Well, that's pretty good. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and then just like you were saying, man, I think he's safe, and especially, he's probably not going to play all 82 games, right? Like, we could probably pencil him in for somewhere between 60 and 75. And
yep, been a long time since he's played 82 games. Really
well, 3 straight years, 74, 61, 58, but he was 82 the year before that.
Yeah.
So it's possible. But, I think he's just Chris Paul, and in any league, I kind of really want Chris Paul.
I'm with you there. I still think his game isn't, he's like a baseball player who has a good, a good changeup or something like that. And I don't like baseball. I don't know why I'm making this analogy, but for him, his game is all about control. He's not the fastest dude on the court. He's a great pace changer. He's got great vision. What he does in his game isn't going to be diminished by getting a little bit older. He's already doing it at 33. He'll do it at 34. And so I'm pretty pleased with if I got Chris Paul at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round next year. Let's go on to number 28. We got a lot of players here on this list, and this player here was the waiver wire player of the year. Nobody saw this one coming, or at least very few people saw this coming outside of Utah's management. Donovan Mitchell, 28th in totals, the rookie, 79 games. How impressed are you by Donovan Mitchell?
Astonished, blown away, like literally. I don't understand how anybody saw Donovan Mitchell being this good.
I don't understand how anyone that age is that good at basketball. Like, that's really incredibly rare. Like, James Harden wasn't this polished, or like he had flashes, right? But like Donovan Mitchell just started doing it game in and game out. It's incredible.
Donovan Mitchell started the year ranked 213th in Mark's rankings. 213th, playing 23 minutes a game.
Well, he ended up playing 33 minutes a game, dropping 20 points, and having 1.5 steals. In the grand scheme of a career, this is a small sample size, even though he did play 79 games. Is this Donovan Mitchell's floor?
Well, and that becomes the real question, right? And this was where I struggled when I was making out my top 50 is we see an outlier season from everybody. And Donovan Mitchell is a little bit older than some rookies, right? I mean, he's already 21. He turns 22 in September. So he's he's not the typical 19. But you know what I mean? Like, is this an outlier, or is this just the basement and where he's going to get better? Like, there's a lot of ways this could go.
I feel like you rarely see an outlier in someone's rookie year. Often, if you are a very good rookie, you have a pretty good.
Well, I mean, Tyreek Evans.
I was going to say there's some outliers here. Tyreek Evans. Tyreek Evans ended up many years later coming around and being a very standard league type of guy, like that you can kind of rely on. He had a pretty good year last year.
Well, and I would argue Tyreek Evans has been somewhat useful almost every year. It's just when he can't keep himself very healthy, right? And then that's a thing too, and especially in fantasy, right? Like, if you're not out there, you're not getting me anything, and that's maybe worse than anything.
With Donovan Mitchell, it's just how much risk do you want to take? Are you willing to, what I'm going to guess, in your third round, I'm going with the guy who's 22 years old, who could even be better this year? I mean, is he going to just continue to get a little bit better, like Devin Booker has, and eventually is going to be a superstar in the league? Well, can he get better in any of these categories? He's shooting almost 30 or 44%, a couple threes a game, 1.5 steals. Like, I guess he could get a little bit better at assists, but he's almost averaging 4 rebounds a game, scoring 20 points. Like,
so he is actually a month older than Devin Booker. I think that's maybe worthwhile to say.
That is.
So, I mean, he was better than Devin Booker this year, but if you look at probably per game, I would guess that Devin Booker was a little better. And maybe that's a good kind of gauge right there is, who would you rather have next year, Devin Booker or Donovan Mitchell?
I don't know, man. That is a great question. You would think the answer is Devin Booker. And I think I might lean Devin Booker as well.
I just think, we saw, other than the steals, I think we saw already a much better season from a younger Devin Booker. And, most people won't understand that because Devin Booker's this is his third year in the league. And, Donovan Mitchell was already that age. I have Donovan Mitchell at 34th behind guys like Rudy Gobert and Vucevic, Gary Harris, Marc Gasol, Klay Thompson, Bradley Beal.
Okay.
Right? Like, I bumped some of these guys ahead of him.
That feels like a right place to be if you're being conservative for Donovan Mitchell, and I have no problem with you being conservative with Donovan Mitchell. It seems suspicious to see a rookie do something like this.
But here's the other thing too. Like, he played 79 games. Okay, so if you're looking at totals, that factors in, right? 79 games is one of the highest amounts of anybody. Okay, the other thing that kind of sort of worries me is like there's a lot of categories that aren't like super good, right? Like 3.7 in rebounds, 3.7 assists are okay. But
3.7 rebounds for a guard is certainly okay.
But like he kind of threw off a little bit other than the 3-pointers, like a guy like DeMar DeRozan. Like who would you rather have there? Right? Like I have him and DeMar DeRozan back to back in my rankings. And it kind of just like got that little DeMar DeRozan vibe. Not that there's anything wrong with DeMar DeRozan, right? We talk about DeMar DeRozan being underrated a lot, but I don't know. I couldn't really separate those two in my rankings. Like I just kind of felt like DeRozan scores a little more, Mitchell hits a few more threes, but they might be kind of similar.
Mm-hmm. And I think people are going to go, oh, well, Mitchell had a slow first half because Utah wasn't playing him, blah, blah, blah. It's not entirely true, everybody. Donovan Mitchell started um, in the beginning of November.
71 games he started out of 79.
Yeah.
So he had
at the
8
beginning
games
of November
where he didn't start.
Mid-November, late November is when he broke out and he never looked back. So this is a good sample size.
I
when
think
you look at his averages, but when you look at what he could be career-wise, it's a little too early to tell.
Yeah, I think he will probably not be on any of my teams because I think the people are going to be like, oh, he was a rookie. He was awesome. He's only going to be better, blah, 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 blah. He was 20, whatever, 8th, 7th, wherever we're at now. And so I think he's going to kind of be a second-round pick, and he's kind of at the end of my third round. So
yeah, I think I'm with you there. And also fantasy-wise, he's good, right? You just kind of said it. He's really good fantasy-wise, but he doesn't do anything spectacular. He's a very good player, not a elite second-round player. So I think we're kind of on the same page with Donovan Mitchell. We'll see how he improves over the offseason. Next up, number 29, Old Faithful, Marc Gasol. I'm surprised he got up to 29.
And this is maybe what I want to talk about here, right? Because we talk about Marc Gasol a ton. Is everybody? I heard everybody that we said draft Marc Gasol big time in the preseason, right? I mean,
I think and we couldn't get away from drafting Marc Gasol. Like every time we did a little mock draft, we're like, "Ooh, Marc Gasol's still on the board. Why are we not picking that guy? He's great."
Well, and because Marc Gasol shot 42% instead of 46 or 47, everybody wanted to tell me, oh, Marc Gasol had such a bad year, blah, 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 blah. Did he? Did he really? Like, he really didn't. He got you more rebounds than he's ever gotten you. He still got you those 4 assists that we wanted. He got you the most blocks he's gotten you in the last 3 seasons. Right? Like, Marc Gasol did a lot of good stuff. And Marc Gasol was still really, really valuable. And sometimes things don't happen the way you wanted them to, right? Like, they goes up in some categories and down in others, but I think Marc Gasol was Marc Gasol.
Well, I really like the fact that people think Marc Gasol had a bad year and that maybe he's on the decline. I know he's like 33, so he's technically on the decline, but I like the fact that people think he had a bad year simply because he's going to be underrated in the draft next year. You'll probably get him at a good cost. I think we got him at a good cost this year too.
I think he finished higher than where we picked him in most cases.
Yeah,
I mean, we were picking him at the beginning of the third round, were we? A lot of times, right? So
maybe into the third round. Yeah, I think
that's what I mean. So I think we mostly turned a profit.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what you're trying to do. And I think Marc Gasol is a great category for that because he's not hot, he's not a great name, he's not young and flashy, and
no one wanted to watch Memphis, right? Nobody.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch Memphis. I don't know if anyone's going to want to watch Memphis next year. I don't know what Memphis is even going to look like next year. So, I mean, you're just going to get Marc Gasol for a deal. He's going to do Marc Gasol stuff. He's going to be underrated. He's going to be undervalued. You're not going to be able to trade him for a proper value if you have him. So just be aware of that little. But you probably don't want to because he's fine. He's good on your team.
Well, and he probably only does a little better than he did this year. If that's, I mean, to say that about a 33-year-old may sound a little bonkers, but I mean, I think he kind of didn't do some things he normally does. So.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think we were still good. We are both still going to like Marcus Gasol next year. Let's go to number 30. Um, the man, the myth, the legend, Joel Embiid. 63 games blew to smithereens the over under that Tyler put up on the mark. I think you had him playing like 22 games.
No, I put the over under at 50 because he played 31 last year.
He played much more than 50.
And okay, so I will ask the question and then I will answer my own question, perhaps.
Okay.
Did this season alleviate some concern, most of the concern, all the concern about his injuries, or none of the concern?
I'm gonna go some concern. We weren't sure if he was ever going to play a game. Then he played 2 single games, or he played 31 games last year, and we're like, is it possible for him to play over the course of a season? And the answer is yes. Like he lasted the entire season. He didn't have any major setbacks. He did have injuries. He did sit out, and that's still a flag at someone that age, only playing 63 games. You're treating him like he's Chris Paul, you know. But if that's what his career is like in 60, playing 63, 65 games, getting to the playoffs, he played in the playoffs. He was 23 and 11. His blocks did not go up, even though his minutes went up, and everybody was kind of looking forward to that. But I'm somewhat alleviated with Joe Embiid. I'm much more interested in drafting him next year, obviously, than we were this year.
So I got one more question, and then I'll answer both questions.
Okay.
Is Joel Embiid a good 3-point shooter, an average 3-point shooter, or a bad 3-point shooter?
Well, it depends on what bad is in this day and age, but
well, I would say
I think he might not be he's not a good 3-point shooter.
Okay, so average is like it got up to 36% this year for the first time ever. Good would be, well, elite would be like in the 40s, I would say. So good would be probably like 37, 38. You know what I mean? Like somewhere between great and
I don't think he's a good 3-point shooter.
And to me, bad would be like 31 and below.
I don't think he's very good.
I think he's bad. I think this year we found out that he cannot shoot the 3-pointers as good as we all thought. I think we all found out he cannot block as many shots as we thought when he has to play a larger workload, right? In 25 minutes, especially when they're, kind of playing you in those bursts, you can kind of blow your gas tank and then sit on the bench, and then blow your gas tank and then sit on the bench, right? But when you got to sustain yourself over the whole game, you can't kind of waste all that energy, right?
Yeah, let's maybe throw a little Hassan Whiteside syndrome when Hassan Whiteside was blocking 22 shots a game, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, imagine if he was playing more minutes." Well, when you play more minutes and you actually have to play real team defense instead of chasing after your any block you want to, and basically having bad position, not getting back, you can only average so many blocks per game if you're not chasing blocks, and I think around 2 is probably it, and that's where Embiid ended up this year.
So here's what I'll say about Joel Embiid. So I'm kind of with you that it alleviated some of my concerns, right? So I'm saying if you play in a standard size league, like 10 and 12 teams, I'm pretty comfortable picking Joel Embiid in the top 20. If I play in a 14, 16, 18, 20 team league, or a league where there's almost no waiver wire, I don't know that I want Joel Embiid where he's going to be picked. Like at all.
Why is
and
that?
The theory behind that is in a league where he's readily replaceable, right? Like, I mean, there was lots of decent centers on the waiver wire this year in like standard leagues, right? We can both agree on that.
Yep.
I think Joel Embiid does a lot of great things, right? 11 rebounds, 23 points, some good percentages, shoots threes, gets you 3 assists, gets you 2 blocks a game, right? There's a lot of good stuff there. And if I can pluck somebody and say, all right, you're in now, and I get the other 20 games from that person, I feel pretty good about that player as an overall for the season, right?
Sure.
In a deeper league where the bench guy is Costa Kufis, and I get 20 minutes a game on the Kings.
Was he playing 20 minutes a game?
Yeah, he plays like 20 minutes every year, man.
Oh, holy shit. That's insane.
Yep.
He should be out of the league.
You know what I mean? When I actually think Costa Kufis is a really good reserve center, not a good fantasy center. Because
definitely not.
Dude, Costa Kufis, underrated take. Costa Kufis is like the third best defender on the Kings.
Okay, well that's literally saying nothing. It's the Sacramento Kings. Let's not deep dive too far in the Sacramento Kings, though.
But anyways, that Costa Kufis point is an aside, right? Because my point being, if the guy plays 20 minutes and he's not going to produce anything great in 20 minutes, right? Not many people can. If that's the best thing available on the waiver wire, I still think there's a lot of risk that Joel Embiid, even 63 games, is not a ton. Right? No. So I think I'm willing to pick him in the second round in a shallow league where there's replacements. If there's no replacements, if someone's going to take him in the second round, it's not going to be me.
It's still a high risk, high reward type of thing.
But at this point, I think it's safe to say he's not an 80 game player. I think you're just foolish if you put that as your projection for him. I think he's a 65 game player. And the biggest injury where he missed the most games was kind of freaky, right? He broke his face.
That's true.
What are the chances he breaks his face again?
He doesn't break his face. Maybe he plays 8-9 more games. He's in the 70s, and per game, he's a top 20 player.
Yeah, but maybe he breaks his hand in the next game, or
I don't know. That's a freak thing. I'm not gonna be like, oh, was if Jimmy Butler breaks his face? Like,
I'm with you.
Break their face.
I'm with you, but now he's gonna have another year on the bad legs, and I just don't feel any way comfortable saying, right. So my target went from 50 to now it's probably my over under as like 65. Right? But I don't feel at all comfortable betting the over on that.
No, I don't either. Joel Embiid, definitely a crapshoot, definitely high risk, high reward type of guy. Tyler would take him in a shallow league up where he is probably being drafted. In a roto league, I'm still a little, you can get those quality starts out of him. So I think he's also worth maybe a late second round type of, if he's still around at that point. But still a lot of question marks with Joel Embiid, whether he can last a whole season. He's definitely not going to be playing close to 80 games at all. But our next player at 31, not only did he played 81 games this season, and this guy is incredibly reliable. He has played 80 games or more in the last 3 seasons. I'm talking about CJ McCollum.
I feel like he's another guy where people were kind of disappointed at points in the season.
You know what?
Like, why is CJ McCollum sucking?
He did suck, and I'm going to tell you why. He played in these totals. He's ranked very well because he played 81 games. He got a lot of stats. He did what he normally does, except for he did shoot back to a much more normal field goal percentage.
I tried to tell you would, man. I tried to tell you would.
You were there. You were right. You had that preseason. You were on that. But I also feel like CJ McCollum is often underrated. I think the league is moving past CJ McCollum. He's very good, but the rest of the league got better. So a couple years ago, on average, he was ranked 34th. That's right in that area where people kind of start paying attention to you, but it's not like you got big flashing lights over your head. He basically did the exact same thing he did that year. This year, same percentages, everything across the board really, and he was on average 52nd. So
now
all that means is 20 players got better than him. he stayed good. He stayed as good as he normally is. 20 players just happen to get better than him. And I think that's exactly what's going on with CJ McCollum. And I think just because of that, his rankings start to drop.
Well, the things that CJ McCollum is good at, right? A lot more people are getting good at, right? Like his threes used to elite, right? And now it's just like, well, a lot of guys hit 2.5 threes. Also, he's a guard that I don't super love to draft because it's one steal and it's not even half a block usually. Like, it's just
and also 3.4 assists.
Yeah, and like, it's just like it's like a lot of stuff that's okay, but it's just like if you just gave me a steal and a half, I'd feel a little better, or you just gave me like 0.7 blocks, I'd be like, yeah.
I feel like he used to be a solid second tier shooting guard, and now just because of the way the league has gone and just everything else that's gone on in the last couple of years, him basically kind of plateauing here, he kind of drops down to a third tier.
I ranked him 42nd.
That sounds like a third tier shooting guard.
Thoughts on that?
You can talk about position scarcity there if you'd like, but that sounds really fair.
Right? I just couldn't find a way. And here's the reality. If anything in my rankings between now and start of season next year, I think he goes down, not up.
Wow. That's interesting. That's an interesting statement.
Just because, he goes up if like someone gets a season-ending injury, right? Like he moves up a spot. Like that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about like, there's nothing sexy about him, right? Like I'd rather have a high upside player in this category or that category. Mitchell. Here's a guy I rank below him that situation could change a lot, and I could throw above him pretty easily. Hassan Whiteside, right? Like if Whiteside moves to a different team, couldn't you see Whiteside kind of vaulting past him real fast? Like there's just a lot of.
I don't know. I have a lot of asides about Hassan Whiteside that I don't feel like I want to get into at this time. I think Hassan Whiteside's a crapshoot. I think he was an outlier, and I think we saw what type of outlier he was. I'm not a fan.
There's also just a lot of guys, like if you're punting specific things, like a guy below him, right below that in my top 50, DeAndre Jordan, right? Like if you're going for a DeAndre Jordan type team, like DeAndre Jordan's ahead of him in your rankings. Like I just don't really feel good about moving him above anybody. Like he's CJ McCollum.
Fair. I'm with you. I think we're actually going to talk about a few guards that I like more than CJ McCollum and easily boost up here in a little bit. But first, let's talk about a guy who was injured, and that is the only reason he is ranked 32nd. Jimmy Butler only played 59 games, did have a fairly severe injury that hindered his production and dropped him down to 59 games this year. Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is an early second-round pick. I think he is
he's the first second-round pick for me in a 12-team league.
I think he is underrated as a second-round pick. I think he will go in the middle of the second round or even late second round, and really you should be picking him at the beginning of that second round because especially after this injury, his stats are going to look a little worse in totals. The way people look at it is Jimmy Butler. He's great.
Here's the one question I think may be worth asking about Jimmy Butler.
How great is he?
Over under games for Jimmy Butler next season. I want you to set the line this time.
Oh, boy. Well, I know he has a history. I'm very aware of his history.
I think that the number is actually pretty locked in if you look at it.
I'm going to say 68.
It's right there, right? Somewhere between 65 and 68. The last, 5 seasons, read 67, 65, 67. Then he did get 76, but then he fell all the way to 59. So if you average that out, I mean, it's right there in that 65, 68 range, right? So I think it's fair to say that it's probably 65 to 68 games next season. Maybe in those
elite steals.
No.
Great assists and rebounds.
We're not going to go there because we both love Jimmy Butler.
Yeah,
but
Jimmy Butler.
If we're talking about one of those crazy deep leagues again, I don't know that I'd pick him at 13th. I'd probably have him more like 20th or a little later. I'd probably bump a couple guys ahead of him just because I feel a little bit safer about the games. And in some of those leagues, you need the games because there's nothing to get when he's hurt.
That's true. Yeah, it depends on how what you're trying to achieve in the league. I'm kind of with Tyler on that. I like to Jimmy. I like Jimmy Butler too much to pass him up, so I probably won't pass him up. But I do agree with Tyler's deep league synopsis. And here's another player at 33, same kind of spiel. Both of these players, Jimmy and number 33, Kyrie Irving, are going to, I think, be a little underrated. Just because people are going to see their stats and their ranks and going to go, well, why were they ranked so low? Oh, well, they're injured. Well, they might get injured again. It's kind of I think that's a fool's errand with certain players, but Kyrie Irving, also a player who has seen his fair share of injuries, sitting out quite a few games over the past few years. I know he had 72 the previous season, but he had 53 the one before, 75 the last season. So playing a few more games than Jimmy Butler has. But yeah, Kyrie Irving, I think, is going to be nice and underrated going
I'll
into the
take
draft.
you on that one because I think Kyrie Irving is often a little overrated.
That's true. I I mean, we're
So
talking about a matter of like 3 or 4 picks, right? Like
no,
I'm gonna
no
say like
but,
you
but
can get
but
him a couple picks later,
here's
and
what
you can.
I see a lot, and I think you'll back me on this. Like I'll be in a draft, especially if I'm in a draft with I don't know really what I want to say here. The average NBA fan,
Okay, there you go.
okay, and like Kyrie Irving and Chris Paul are on the board at the end of the first or early second round, and the guy picks Kyrie Irving, and
That
I'm
makes
usually just confused. I'm just like,
and you
whoa,
go. I'm usually like, great.
you know what I mean?
That guy would never think Damian Lillard should be picked over Kyrie Irving, and I think Damian Lillard should be picked over Kyrie Irving.
Yes, 100%.
So,
So
like, that's a benefit.
So my point being is, like, I often don't ever own Kyrie Irving on any of my teams because I see Kyrie Irving like go in the first round, and I'm like confused and
See,
just going like, huh?
yeah, that's a good point. In
And
in the in
here's
the in the standard layman's leagues, that
here's
is
the
true. I think experts actually kind of
here's
underrate him.
the thing that Kyrie Irving that gives me the little heebie-jeebies. Now we could talk about the Brad Stevens thing, like almost getting him to shoot 50%, which was pretty freaking amazing, right?
Hmm.
But 5 assists a game, like that's okay, but not great. 1.1 steals, that's okay, but not great. Zero point 0.3 blocks, that was okay, but not great. And 24.4 points is pretty good, but not super elite.
It's up there.
And so, like, he's another guy. Like, I ranked him 21st. I ranked John
Okay.
Wall ahead of him. I think that's maybe a crazy take.
That is
At
that's a weird take based on based on this season. It's a weird take to take, but I see where you arrived at it because John Wall does elite stuff. And
and
in a head-to-head league, that's way more important than someone who's really good at a bunch of things but not great.
and that's kind of where I was going with it, right? And I rank guys like Ben Simmons ahead of him, right?
Yeah.
And guys like Draymond Green and Joel Embiid and Kawhi Leonard, maybe, right? Because Kawhi Leonard, I will admit, was the toughest
Still put him
person.
up there. Yeah.
I'm putting him up there right now, but I
Yeah.
mean, we talked about this a lot.
We'll
Like
see.
that could be gone,
Sure.
right? So I have him 21st, and I don't think he ever lasts to 21. So I don't think I'll ever own him. But I think that point was maybe worth making. That he's sometimes overrated and sometimes underrated, if that's possible.
Kyrie Irving, a living enigma on a flat planet. Next up, number 34, my boy. Tyler is such a hater of my boy. Will Barton, number 34, made it again this year. Now he played 81 games, everybody. I'll settle down a little bit, but Tyler, you always hate all the time on my boy Will Barton, and Will Barton comes to play every single year. What do you have to say for yourself?
Um, I don't even think you could have imagined Will Barton being this good. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's very fair.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. Will Barton, another guy who doesn't do anything sexy, right? He's very much in the. I don't know.
Everything well across the board, and when he plays big minutes, the dude plays.
I just don't know how anyone and we could talk about fallacies in our rankings, right? And I'm going to look up where he was ranked at the beginning of the season to begin with in a second. But how could anyone see him playing 33 minutes as a 27-year-old? Like all of a sudden, he got 33 minutes a game.
No, I would have never guessed. I always like snagging Will Barton late because he's always good for like 2 months of playing wild out, and this year he started.
Mark had him 130
starters minutes anyway. He didn't start.
Mark had him 139. So if you picked him, you got a hell of a profit.
What about going in the next season though? What's up with Denver next season?
So I'll flip that question on you because he's outside my top 50.
He's outside my top 50 too.
Yeah, and he's a free agent, correct?
I believe so.
So we don't really know, and then I think maybe it's not even worth saying. You know what I mean? Because if he's on Denver, we could maybe talk about it. But is he going to be on Denver? Like I could see somebody splashing a lot of cash at this guy.
If he is on a team now, Will Barton does seem like a really good nominee for contract player of the year. You know what I mean? Like guys who are on contract years, they all play better on contract years, but some guys play a hell of a lot better on contract years. And I think Will Barton could be one of those players. But if he's going to another team that splashes some cash at him and he's going to play 33 minutes again next year, I'm going to start thinking about putting him in my top 50.
Well, but I mean, just because someone throws a lot of cash at you doesn't mean you're going to be a star player on the team, right? Like, say the Kings throw a lot of cash at him.
You have to go to the right. It has to. I don't care what he's going to get paid. What I'm saying, he goes to a team that allows him to play 33 minutes a game.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's all bull crap, right? I mean, when anything we say about what team he's on, like no one knows.
What about Will Barton on Orlando?
God, Will Barton on Orlando.
I'm interested. Just
running the
team. He's the alpha dog there.
I don't know. Like I'll admit this. Okay, I look at the stat line and I say, "That's for you, Mike," because look at the rest of his seasons. Okay, he played 73 games, then 41, then 58. Okay, then he played 82, then he played 60, then he played 81.
And in the last 2 seasons, at some point in the year, over a month or so span, he was ranked in the top 30.
Yeah, okay, so like
he's just a guy to keep an eye on. I wouldn't draft him in the 4th round because he's going to be good for a month. But I'm just saying, like, he doesn't.
Okay,
he's worth drafting.
I'll put him at pick 80. His ADP is pick 80. Don't ask me why, but we'll say that's what it is. Would you draft him
at pick 80? Yeah, I think I'd consider him at pick 80. There's a lot of junk down here.
Okay, so assuming he's on the same team in the same role, right? The Nuggets, for whatever reason, don't make any moves. Yeah. They added the draft pick or whatever.
Sure.
Pick him at 75. Like where are you picking him? Like,
I'd start considering him probably around 70s, in the 60, 70 range.
And in a standard league, right? Like that's getting to the point where like that's probably a guy I hold for the whole season, but you know what I mean? Like it's getting on the fringes of like maybe I cut this guy if he sucks. This is the guy though. I think if you draft, you almost can't cut. If you're assuming that he's going to have 2 or 3 really good months, you got to stick with him through the crap.
Yeah, let him just suffer through it because he's going to have 2 amazing months at some point during the season.
Here's the type of gamble I like to take on a player like this. I'll let someone else take the shot on him at 70 or 80. And I'm hoping that idiot cuts him and I get the good stuff and he gets the crap.
Or you could trade with that player, whoever drafted Will Barton at a low period in Will Barton's season, and have him throw Will Barton in on a trade, you know? Like that's probably the best. Like Will Barton is not going at 34th in anyone's draft next year. He shouldn't. And this is just I love that Will Barton is relevant every single year. That's what I love about him in some fashion.
Okay, and here's what I'll say. This is probably the first player on our list that I'll say this about. Would you be like completely floored if Will Barton fell into obscurity next season? Like I
wouldn't be floored, but I'd be surprised. The guy's proved that he does it every year.
Surprised, I'll give you, but like I'm talking about, like if any other player we've talked about so far fell into complete obscurity, I'd be like, no way. Like barring injury, there's no way that guy's just nothing.
Lou Williams?
Yeah, but see, even Lou Williams has always been kind of like we talked about that at the beginning of the season, right? Like
he's always been relevant, yeah.
Right. Like I could see Will Barton, like if he gets on a team with like a crap ton of guards, like shooting guards, small forwards,
like riding the bench the last half of the season, like for no
you know what I mean?
Because he's not playing, and you're like, whoa, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah,
no, that's 100% possible.
And I wouldn't be like, oh my god, I cannot believe that. Like that is freaking unbelievable.
Yeah, whereas I wouldn't like go to that town and try to burn the stadium down. Like
which he's the first guy though. Will you agree with me on that? Like every other,
I will agree that he's the first guy on this list that we've said that you could even remotely. He might be one of the only guys on this list, maybe outside of a couple people who you could even say that about.
Yeah, so that's always kind of my point with Will Barton. Like, no way. That's one of the big reasons there being like, if you said
that's fair,
no way in the top 50, like he's no way in the top 50 for me because there's some percent chance that happens. It's not a high percent, I'll give you that, but there's some percent. Whereas some of the other guys, I think it's 0% other than injury, which we can't really predict.
That's true. Let's move on to the 35th ranked player, even though this dude only played 48 games. DeMarcus Cousins, ranked 35th in totals through 48 games, was having the most monster season of monster seasons in the history of DeMarcus Cousins' career. We don't know what's going to happen.
Man.
Yeah, man. It is me too, because I've always been pulling for DeMarcus Cousins. He's always been a favorite fantasy player of mine, and he's just jacking threes left and right now, and he was having a great season, and I think he was going to have kind of a monster one. He was averaging in the top 10. I think he was 6 overall per game, which is pretty crazy. How long is DeMarcus Cousins projected to be out? Like, what are you looking at him next year?
Okay, so he says he's hoping to be ready by training camp.
Okay.
I held him outside my top 50 for the reason of injury. And even if he's healthy by training camp, right? Like I just don't think he's going to be full go, right? Like there's no way this guy's going to start the season playing 35 minutes a game, right? Like
he got injured in January, at the end of January. I don't know how he's ready for training camp.
Right. And so like the injury thing was like, okay, he's going to miss some games. He's probably going to start off slow when he comes back, right? Sit back to backs, like do those things that guys who have a massive injury do. So that kept him outside my top 50. But I'd like to do kind of a thought experiment here. Okay. Because we don't really know, right? I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
But say for whatever reason we see him in like a preseason game or two. And he's going to start the year healthy. I put quote marks around that.
Yeah, he looks fairly healthy.
Where the hell do you pick DeMarcus Cousins? Coming off an Achilles injury.
Season, he looks fairly healthy.
He looks like he's going to start in the first game. Now, if it's a back-to-back, right? The first 2 games are back-to-back. He might sit game 2. But he's going to play in the first game.
Well,
that's a given. I'm giving you that, even though it's not a given,
okay.
Right?
Don't you treat him like you would treat Joel Embiid? Joel Embiid is good, and Cousins is better than Joel Embiid. Cousins has more injury risk than Joel Embiid suddenly. Joel Embiid is going to play limited games. Cousins is going to play limited games. Cousins is better per game. I would probably take DeMarcus Cousins 1 ahead of Joel Embiid.
Well, and I guess the question is, how much does this Achilles slow him down, right? Like, if they, no way I could pick him that high. I don't think. As bad as
he's too good. He's
he's
too
so
good not to.
he's been so good, but we have no idea what this Achilles is gonna do, right? Like, no idea. And this is, I mean, turn some players into
Don't
mustard.
remind me. Don't
You know
remind
what I
me.
mean?
Do not remind me what a torn Achilles can do to a player.
Um, yeah, this is one of the biggest head scratches for me. So here's how I played it out in my brain. He tore it in January. I don't think you see him anywhere near fully healthy, like 12 months later.
Till Christmas, yeah.
Yeah. So to me, if he's gonna miss like most of the games up until Christmas, and then he's gonna start building his way back, that's hands off in the draft for me.
You're getting a half a season out of him. Let's say you get 48 games out of him.
But if
he
you
was ranked 35th in totals in 48 games.
If you get 48 games, they're not going to be at 36 minutes a game.
They're not going to be at this level of play. You're right.
And right, because he's going to start off like 15, 20 minutes. Like, they're not going to start this guy off at 35 minutes.
I wouldn't. If you're whoever's paying the money, you can't start
him out. And here's the other thing, and not that I think this super matters with DeMarcus Cousins, because I mean, we've seen him produce on a lot of in a lot of different situations.
Mm-hmm.
We have no idea what team he's going to be on because he's an unrestricted free agent, and he could be back with the Pelicans. He could be anywhere.
No idea where he could be.
No idea.
It's wild. That'll be something to watch as we get closer. So we'll definitely be talking about that closer to the season. Let's move on to number 36. This guy's a little confusing as well. Kind of took a step back this year, but played 81 games and got him into the 36th spot. Josh Richardson on the Miami Heat. Looks like he could be a pretty good player in the league, but that team is kind of a roster cluster. Josh, I don't know how I feel about Josh Richardson literally at all. Other than he's a pretty good fantasy player that I'll never draft.
Well, I don't know about that. So he's not in my top 50 for next year.
Nah,
but
me neither.
I mean, I think there's definitely a point where I would draft him. Now, will other people be drafting him higher? That's likely.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But like, I mean, Josh Richardson or Will Barton?
Well, Josh Richardson. Only because Josh Richardson. Well, I don't even know. Actually, I don't know. Will Barton playing 33 minutes. I'll take Will Barton.
Yeah, but who do you feel better about playing 33 minutes, Josh Richardson or Will Barton? I feel better about Josh Richardson. A little bit,
barely,
not a lot,
barely.
not a lot, but a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know what's going on in
Miami. I guess here's what I'll say about Josh Richardson.
They're paying a bunch of mediocre players way too much money. That's what's going on in Miami.
Right. Well, and the fact that they matched that Tyler Johnson contract. I mean, we talked about that. That was just dumb. And
that franchise is now buried. The East has been shit for decades, and it's going to be even somehow still going to be. It's getting better, I guess, with Philly and Boston. But let's not get into that.
Josh Richardson, I would probably. I think maybe he's in the same boat as Will Barton in a little bit, right? Like he does a lot of okay stuff and not a lot of great stuff, but in like that 60-70 range, I'm starting to look at Josh Richardson if it fits my team and it's what I need. Like, I'm probably not super excited. Like, I'm not jumping out of my chair going, "Yeah, I got Josh Richardson," but
there's a right price for him, right? And it's definitely when everybody starts overlooking him. That's the right time. That's the right price for someone like that. I don't want to get too far into Josh Richardson, but we'll have to see what's going on in Miami's rotation as we get into next season.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to watch. Flag him in your league. I'd much rather watch this next guy, ranked 37. Definitely was one of the players to watch, kind of a sleeper player going into the draft. And I'd say he did perform as a sleeper should. Jamal Murray for the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets are lousy with combo guards, and I don't know what to do with the fact that him and Gary Harris and Will Barton are all on the same team. They kind of need like a different type of player. But Jamal Murray at 21 years old had a fantastic season, and I think he looks like he's someone who can get progressively better.
I'll back you there, but I mean he's in the Otto Porter class in some ways, right? Like he does a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and like I don't really see any category I think he's ever really going to stand out in.
Yeah, now that we've kind of gotten down to the second half of this top 50, we are looking at a bunch of players who are flawed in some specific way. He's another player that across the board is good.
But and like if we're comparing him to other young guys, right, like the Donovan Mitchell and the Devin Booker, like I could see Devin Booker getting up to like 27 points a game.
Yeah.
And like standing out in that category. I could see like there's a path to Donovan Mitchell to kind of do that too, right? Like he already got 20 points a game as a rookie. For Jamal Murray, I just don't really see anywhere where like he's going to be good across the board, I think, but I don't like he's going to be 4.5 assists and 4.5 rebounds and like maybe 1.1, 1.2 steals and like nothing where you're just like, yeah, it's my ticket.
Potentially, this is where you're going to see Jamal Murray plateau. I think he could. There's a chance that he could get incrementally better over this year, simply because he's 21. He's on Denver, and the team is kind of evolving together, and that's pretty exciting. He's got some stat lines down here that are super impressive. Every once in a while, just throwing down, 7, 8 assists with 3 steals and 6 rebounds and 5 threes and 25 points. Like those are stat lines of borderline all-stars. I'm not saying Jamal Murray is going to be a borderline all-star next year, but I am saying I think I've seen flashes, and that to me that's one of the categories when I look at someone who I want to draft, I need to see flashes. I've seen flashes from Jamal Murray.
Okay, he barely made my top 50. That might be surprising.
I'm a little surprised by that. I 100% have Jamal Murray in my top 50.
He was number 48 for me.
All right.
Just because I don't think he stands out in any category. And I mean, like, I kind of think maybe Denver runs this back a little bit with kind of the same type of team. And I think he gets a little bit better maybe, but he doesn't produce anything super sexy. And he played 81 games, which, I mean, he played 82 and 81 games. He's been healthy 2 straight seasons. And when we talk about that,
that's fair. I'm a little bit more interested in him from a roto perspective because I do play more roto leagues, but
I'm with you there, right? He's definitely a guy who gets a bump in roto, right? Like I would probably move him up quite a bit in roto, but in head to head, it's like, okay, like I think I'd rather have like a Clint Capella type or a DeAndre Jordan type where at least they're standing out somewhere.
Yeah, good point. I agree with you. And speaking of that, up next at 38 is Clint Capella, who had a really, really good season. Still only played 27 minutes a game, but made the steps that people who I think were targeting Clint Capella this year, the steps that they wanted him to take, and he is having a pretty good playoffs as well. We're talking about probably the most elite field goal percentage, block, rebound guy in the league, who obviously his free throw is going to hurt you, but it's not destroying you like it usually is with some of those guys. Clint Capella, he's only 24.
All right, I want to test your big man hierarchy.
Oh boy.
Okay. So you got Clint Capella or DeAndre Drummond?
That's probably what I would be debating.
Oh wow, really?
I'm probably just because of the really impressive leap in free throw percentage from Andre Drummond. I'm going with Andre Drummond, and the guy's like a lunatic when it comes to rebounding.
Marc Gasol or Clint Capella?
I love Marc Gasol. That's not fair.
I don't even think that one's a question. I don't think the first two are questions.
I'm going with Marc Gasol.
Nikola Vucevic or Clint Capella?
I'll probably go. I like Vukovic's all around game now, so I'll probably go Vuk.
Rudy Gobert.
Gobert.
Let's see. Next big man on the list is Hassan Whiteside, Al Horford, or DeAndre Jordan. You taking any of those guys over Clint Capella?
Clint Capella.
I actually took Al Horford and Hassan Whiteside over Clint Capella, assuming that Hassan Whiteside is on a different team.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so we kind of got him pegged, kind of where I think he belongs, in those lower tier but still relevant big man. I don't know. I mean, yeah, like around the 40 to 50 range sounds right. And that's where Clint Capella kind of ended up this year.
And this is another one that I think it's worth saying, right? That like just because he only played 27 minutes, like don't crap yourself thinking if he gets 32 minutes, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Like we've seen this with a lot of big men. Sometimes more is not more. Sometimes more is less permanent and about the same total.
That's true. Let's move on. I think we got Clint Capella pretty squared away to the new LA Clipper, Tobias Harris, who went from Detroit to LA this year. Tobias Harris, usually underrated, kind of another one of those guys where does a lot of really good things across the board, but not spectacular in any other way. But saw a little bit more of a feature role in LA.
I always seem to find this guy on my team.
Yeah, no one likes it. He's got a bad name. He's not flashy, and he's a good fantasy player. And people just ignore it.
He always seems to just like get a little bit better, right? He got 19 points for the first time, and he got the steals that he hadn't gotten in a while, and he did this and he did that, and he got a few more rebounds, and he got 3 assists, and you know, I mean, like I don't know, I just always feel like everyone sleeps on him, and I mean, like even I did. He was 39th this year. I had him outside my top 50, and he'll go at like 60 or 70, and
you'll get him
probably be on my
50.
team, and I mean, it's just like it just keeps happening to me, man. It just keeps happening to me. Like
and I would suggest it should keep happening to everyone. He is right around kind of like a 50-60 player, and I think he's gonna be a 50-60 player. And you should take him, and you should take him.
Here's what I'll say: I would much rather have him than Will Barton and Josh Richardson, and
yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think some people like jump on those guys, like, oh, this guy's got upside, blah blah blah. Well, Tobias Harris has safety.
Yeah,
sometimes safety is better.
He'll safely be probably somewhere between 40 and 60 next year. A newcomer to the top 50, Joe Ingles. You were on Joe Ingles before the season this year. I think you liked him. I was intrigued, and he ended up finishing 40th.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about Joe Ingles was I think that we saw in limited minutes he got a lot of steals, and he actually didn't end up getting a super amount of steals like I thought he would. But he's a guy who just and I talked about this like for someone who was going at the end of your draft. He was gonna do a little bit of everything. He was gonna be that type of player, the Otto Porter type, and he's obviously like a little bit less
like a poor man's Otto Porter.
Right. He just does a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And the 4.8 assists were awesome, right? And so, I mean, I feel pretty good about this guy. I don't have him in my top 50. He's 30 years old. But if he's going to get a big role where he's a starter, I mean, he's kind of in that Tobias Harris 60, 70 range, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think he'll get drafted there because Utah players always get hated on. He'll probably get picked at like later than 100 or 100. And he'll definitely probably be on some of my teams.
Yeah, everybody's been killing him for looking like the dude that they see at their pickup games. So, yeah, he'll probably get overlooked, and you'll probably be able to pick him up. Here's a guy who's not going to get overlooked, but surprisingly, only played 73 games this season and ended up 41st. Klay Thompson. I know on average, he has kind of slowly gone down over the last 3 years. A little bit of that is due to the workload that Curry and Durant get to take over Klay Thompson. And a little bit of that, I think, is due to the rest of the league kind of basically trying to be Klay Thompson, and so being Klay Thompson isn't as rare as it used to be. But I am a little surprised to see him all the way down at 41.
Klay Thompson is another one of those guys, right? Where like he shoots really good percentages. So in roto leagues, he gets a little bit more sexy.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So Klay Thompson is a guy I also can't quit.
Well, I mean, at least out of those guys who kind of do, who are guards who don't give you the assists that you want and the steals that you want, at least he is breaking the three pointers a game mark.
Right. And so I think that bumped him up over some other guys. And well, here's one that probably may surprise you, right? Klay Thompson or Donovan Mitchell for next year.
Oh man, that's a good question. Probably Klay Thompson.
And that's what I went to.
But only based on the percentages. If I don't care about percentages, I think I take Donovan Mitchell.
And that's fair. I went with Klay Thompson at 29th of my rankings, and I don't know. I went back and forth between him and Marc Gasol, and I actually ranked Marc Gasol lower than him just because Marc Gasol shot 42%. And I'm worried that if the Grizzlies suck again, Marc Gasol might just chuck some more.
And yeah, I might just try to get wet. Like, yeah, why not?
And like, just shoot bad. But I don't know, man. Klay Thompson, I don't know that I'm rational about him, man. I always just seem to like him and get him on a lot of my teams. And
I will try to remember that going into our listener league, where I definitely made you look foolish and beat you senselessly in the listener league. So,
live it up, Mike. You got one on me.
I will 1-0. That's all that matters.
1-0. Now I don't know about all that. Like 1 out of 42, maybe.
We will talk about that going into next season. We will get listeners. Speaking of that, all you listeners out there, if you're interested in the listener league, you're gonna have to hit us up. But let's get through these final top 50 guys. Speaking of old boring, like Marc Gasol, old boring Al Horford, 42nd.
Getting underrated now.
Love Al Horford. I've always loved Al Horford. He's always underrated. Now he's even more underrated.
Yeah, I don't know that there's really a lot to say about Al Horford, is there? He's
Al Horford.
He shot in a probably unsustainable 3-point percentage this year. That's the only thing I'll say.
We both love Al Horford. Everybody should know Al Horford at this point, especially if you listen to this. The dude is across the board great, and he's underrated, and you usually can get him as a steal. Go look at his per game. He's ranked higher than you'll ever dream that he was. Like, you're like, what? He's been in the top 30 for years? Yeah, he's been in the top 30 for years. Stop overlooking Al Horford. Next up, another guy we can't quit, Ricky Rubio, who did have a down season this year, but still was able to be 43rd overall in 77 games, playing only 29 minutes a game.
So, were we right or wrong? Because I get blasted for this call being bad a lot. And I think it was right.
We were right on a technicality.
Like,
he was good.
He was right for all the wrong. Made him out to be. Well, he was good, right? And he was as good as I said he was going to be, I think. He just didn't get the assist, which drove me nuts in a couple leagues. Like, it hurt me in a couple leagues. And I understand why people get pissed about it. Because, but you were a green-eyed space alien or a man who can tell the future, Nostradamus himself, if you thought he was going to get 5.3 assists a game. There's no way in hell anyone could have predicted that.
No. If you thought him and Kyrie were going to be similar in assists, you were playing you should be playing the lotto, not this game.
So I still think I was kind of right, but I get where I was wrong.
Yeah. We both were hard on Ricky Rubio, and
so
we were technically right. He had a pretty good season, but he did not have the great season that we thought he could. And he could have had a better season if he would have played more.
So I ranked him 41st for next year. Thoughts on that?
Pretty fair. Sounds all right. Thinking about it.
I think the assists only go up and he's only better, but that's just the thought.
Let's talk about another guy that we can't stop dreaming about. Gary Harris, number 44. 34 minutes a game. Did finish below Jamal Murray, but Gary Harris only played 67 games. So I assume if he would have played 81, he would have blown right by Jamal Murray. I love Gary Harris. You love Gary Harris. He's an elite steals guy. Got a lot of upside, and I think he is kind of one of the pieces in Denver that they're going to be building around. I think he can get better next year. I'm going to move up in my rankings.
I ranked him 31st.
That sounds pretty good. That sounds like you moved him up. Here's a surprise at 45. Taurean Prince.
Oh, did you do that on purpose? Surprise at 45?
No, I didn't. I'm just naturally good at this.
This one was a hard one for me to peg. Because I don't really know what the hell to think about Taurean Prince for next year.
Yeah, we were all kind of like, hey, he could get big minutes, and hey, he kind of looks like he could be a decent across-the-board fantasy player, and he got minutes, and he was a decent across-the-board fantasy player.
Yeah, and I think you were higher on him than me, which was fair.
Yeah, not by a lot. It's not like I had him in my top 50.
But I think I was kind of right about his game kind of being like blasé, you know what I mean? Like I think that like some people were thinking like, oh man, he's gonna get like 2 steals a game and he's gonna do this awesome and that awesome and then like he's gonna block a shot a game if he gets 30 minutes. And I'm like, I don't really think he is, guys. Like I just
Is he but he went from people who don't know who this person's name to an almost Tobias Harris.
Oh, dude, we definitely both made some profit off him. I think we can agree on that, right? Like you made some profit on him, and so did I.
Yeah,
this year.
That's why I was on him. I was like, hey, this guy is going to be relevant. If you don't think he is,
but if
I might have been a little too into him, but yeah,
if he's picked in the top 50 next year, I'm out.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if that happens.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. This guy, go ahead.
If he's picked above pick 75, are you in?
That's barely above 75, maybe.
I think I'm like at 75. That's kind of where I'm starting to go. Is Taurean Prince around? What's he up to?
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's ever going to get like 35 minutes a game, right? Like, I mean, the Hawks sucked, and he got.
I don't know what's going to happen in Atlanta next year. I don't know. I think.
Well, but there's a new coach, right?
75. I think I could get him 70, maybe even before that. There's a couple of these guys that I don't trust down here.
I'll back you, but there's also some guys that you're going to throw in there that were hurt that are going to kind of bump all these guys down too. You got to remember that.
Yep, that's very true. Speaking of, here's a guy who's not going to fall out of the top 50, who had a very much more impressive year than we thought it was going to.
This was a definite W for me, right? Because everybody
was zigging. And
everybody said there's no way Jeff Teague's a top 50 player. He only played 70 games and he was still a top 50 player. So
number 46, Jeff Teague, 7 assists a game,
right?
Steals.
And that was my call, right? I said the assists are going to be like 6.5, 7 a game. I feel like this was one of my best calls of the season, right? I think I nailed this player.
Absolutely, and I think by the time preseason was over, you had convinced me to move Jeff Teague up in my rankings as well.
Right, and so I think the two of us, more than anybody, had this player pegged perfectly.
Absolutely, I did not hear a lot of people loving Jeff Teague out there, and I think by the time it was draft time, those last few weeks before the season, we were probably the only people out on the corner yelling Jeff Teague's name.
Right. And so say what you want, right? I heard all the, he's going to be the 4th option, bloody, never going to get 7 assists, blah, blah, blah. No. And I feel great about him right in the same area next year. I think he's going to be a very similar player, assuming the team is very similar.
That was a great call, Tyler. Here's another guy who surprised a lot of people being a rookie. Jason Tatum, number 47, played 80 games. This guy, watching him in the playoffs now, looks like he's going to be something else.
So this is the one I might take back of my top 50, and I might put him in.
Yeah,
I took him out.
He is trending up, that's for sure. But let's look at his fantasy game.
But
does his game translate to a top, eventually a top fantasy player?
No. Not top.
He can reach the 1 steal, 1 block criteria. His percentages are very good. But what else is he doing?
Yeah. And you got to throw Gordon Hayward in this mix somewhere. So does he even still get 30 minutes a game?
That is the $200 million question.
And that's really
Kyrie
what
and Hayward changed that whole team.
Right, and that's really what knocked him down for me. Like there were people I was thinking about putting in the top 50. He really wasn't even in like the thought, because I'm like, well, Gordon Hayward's going to come back and play like 32, 34 minutes a game. And
I'd be surprised if they don't find a way to get Jason Tatum 30 minutes a game next year. Brad Stevens is kind of a genius.
I'll give you that. And and then in the playoffs, and this is kind of what made me rethink it, is like, we've seen a lot of really good stuff from a really young guy in the playoffs. And so now it's kind of like, well, where do I peg him? Right? Like, I think right now, if I had to redo it, he's probably somewhere in the like 50 to 60 range for me.
Yeah, definitely. But as one of those guys, we've been talking about a lot of these guys who are in that 50 to 60 range. Your Tobias Harris's, your Tyrion Prince's, perhaps Josh Richardson, perhaps. This Jason Tatum being in there is like a temporary thing. This guy's got a ceiling that's incredibly high.
Yeah. So I would rather have Tobias Harris for next year, but I'd rather have Jason Tatum over all those other players probably.
Yeah. In fact, like if I had to choose between Tobias Harris and Tatum, like I wouldn't care who I chose.
Yeah.
Probably next year I'd lean Tobias because he's going to play and Tatum is going to be questioned.
But so the next two guys,
Stevens, man, I'm talking myself out of it already. Brad Stevens is going to figure out a way to play this guy.
Yeah, but like I don't think that there's like a ton of upward mobility in the sense that like, is it going to be a lot more than 30 minutes, right? Like,
no, probably not.
It's not going to jump
right now, not today.
It's not going to jump to like 35, right? So it's like unless there's another big injury, right, which we can't predict. Sure. But like, you know what I mean? Like, and so like, yeah, okay, he gets a little bit better, but he also plays like the same minutes, and so like, what's he going to do? Like, jump a couple spots, like. You know what I mean? It's not like I don't see him like coming out and dropping 20 points a game next year.
That's fair. I'm with you there. I think his name recognition might be a little high going into next year as well, but a lot of Boston boys and a lot of hype from this playoff series. So you do got to watch out for that as well. Let's knock out all three of these last players.
Well, let's do the two and then the one. Because I think the one there might be something we have worthwhile to say, and the other two are kind of.
I'm interested. Who are you talking about?
In some ways, very similar, right? So DeAndre Jordan and Steven Adams, right? Like, do you even want either one in a Roto League?
48-49. Steven Adams, I'm more interested in
because he doesn't shoot quite as many free throws, and he gives you a little bit more. Like DeAndre Jordan blocking less than a shot a game this year was very disappointing, right? Can we both agree on that?
Very. And
so I don't really know what to do with him for next year. In that sense, like, do I really want a big man on my team? Like, okay, yeah, like the 15 rebounds are amazing. So in a head-to-head league, I'm interested. But if he's not going to block shots, like, that's just kind of disappointing anywhere.
I don't know what to do with that guy if he's not going to block shots.
So I had him barely.
Steven Adams.
I had him barely in my head-to-head top 50. And I'm hoping that the blocks go back up, but sometimes they don't, and sometimes they do. And Steven Adams is kind of a similar player. He was just outside my top 50, but I was kind of thinking about him in there.
Yeah, I think I like him a little bit more. He's 24. I just kind of like his steals and just what he does all across the board. And he had a period of time where he was shooting a little bit better free throw over this season. I was like, ooh, look at this. And then it kind of fell off, but whatever. That was 48 and 49.
So we talked about the player I nailed the most.
Here's the guy that we were both on. This guy once he got traded,
but Mr. Mark Roberts nailed this player.
His name is Enes Kanter, and per minute we knew this guy is a fantasy just all-star, and getting him wherever you drafted him, and being able to just knock out 14 points, 11 rebounds, half a steal, half a block, 60% field goal, and 84, almost 85% free throw shooting with like 0 turnovers. you made out like a bandit no matter where you drafted this guy.
And we talked about this, right? He was in the top 50 of Mark's rankings in 26 minutes a game. And I remember as soon as the trade happened, we talked about it. And it was like this is a guy you people have to pick because he's going to be a top 50 player, even if he only plays 25 or 26 minutes a game. Well, Mark nailed it because he played 25.8 minutes a game and he was number 50 in 71 games. So it wasn't even like he played 82 and it was a fluke, right? He only played 71, which is probably about the average. So yeah, so I shout out to Mark for that one. He drilled it. He helped us all, and if you listened, he probably got a good value.
Absolutely, and that rounds out the top 50. As Tyler was talking about, Mark's rankings for next season will be on #basketball.com. Obviously, closer to the actual season once we get through the crazy, legitimately nuts off season that this could be. We have a ton of just franchise changing rookies coming in, along with a regular draft after those franchise changing rookies get drafted. And this is just, it's going to be, I feel like we're going to look back at this offseason and go, man, that was a real culture change, wave change. I don't know how you want to say it, but generational change. With how many good rookies we've had over the last 2 years, and this giant crop of rookies coming in. Me and Tyler will be doing a post NBA draft podcast on all the guys. We are going to probably be taking a hiatus until after the NBA draft, but if you are interested in us talking about anything over the off season, you want to talk about dynasty stuff, keeper things, you got questions about your league specifically, or just stuff that you want to know to prepare you for next season, we'll be picking that back up. Obviously, NBA draft and free agency all happen right at the same time, almost overlap each other anyway. And we're going to hit that when the big news comes out so you can be prepared for what you need to decide there. But like I said, do not hesitate to hit us up. Tyler, where can people reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Watsy4444.
And Tyler has some great, way too early rankings up on #basketball.com. Go check those out right now. And you can find me at Watch the Boxes. If you like the show, please rate, review us. And if you really like the show and you like to gamble, go on draft.com, use the promo code BOXES. Going in next season, we're going to have some other opportunities for people to interact with us. And we're going to be trying to improve the show the best way we can. But the best way we can is if you leave us feedback and how you would like to hear the show, because we're doing this for all you guys. So we appreciate you guys listening all season, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.